Maybe push it back further. Hey everyone.
Hey, welcome to our special edition of Detroit DPX Radio Live. As I posted earlier, we mentioned last week about waiting room music for people to join on because they have trouble joining onto our live feed. So we just made it like a little game that if you can guess the waiting room music, you'll be the first one to ask Stephanie a question. So as we are watching, as we are waiting for Stephanie to join on, I'll play this music.
Try and guess that song.
You need the song title and the artist.
Yes. I mean, and the closest will win, obviously.
Yeah. So let us know if you don't hear it. So things that we have coming up. Next weekend, we have Ashmore Estates. Some of our team is going down there. We'll be live.
Very excited.
At 9 p.m. Eastern, so check that out.
Yeah, you guys, we're going down, a bunch of us from DPX, some of our friends, the ladies from Paranormal, Kathleen Wilson, and several others, so we're really excited. We'll go live as we investigate. Hopefully you guys can tune in, and we'll keep you posted, so follow Detroit Paranormal Expedition's Facebook page for those updates. And then Friday the 13th, we have Atwater in the Park for our Hello from the Other Side year release. And soon there should be an event created, and we can invite all of you.
So we're waiting.
Tanya, you can hear? Okay. Hey, Todd.
If anybody knows the song, comment, and you can ask Stephanie the first
I would
question.
never guess this song.
I picked a kind of hard one.
Lauren made it hard first thing.
Yeah.
Well, I know they can't come far from the sky.
Can you hear me now, Tanya?
To refine the purest of kings.
Let's see. We're trying to get Stephanie on.
She's not watching yet.
Yeah.
I know this fire brings me pain.
Todd says
No,
Prince.
it's
No.
not Prince.
And just the same.
What else do we have? Oh, April 13th. We have our Atwater beer launch. Atwater in the Park down in Grosse Pointe. So please check that out. We'll only have 7 kegs available, so please come early.
We'll turn it down.
Yeah, turn the music down. I didn't know if the music would be loud enough.
This is a great time to pull out your Shazam app.
Yeah. We're kind of mixing it up tonight. This is one of the games that we're playing. We're also going to play Would You Rather.
And Stephanie has no idea what she's in for. They're all paranormal related questions, though. So.
Yeah, it's Paranormal edition of Would You Rather. So she doesn't know any of the questions.
She doesn't even know she's playing yet.
Yeah. So we're just waiting for her to join. I don't know where she is.
She's tagged in the post, so. Hey, Shane.
Hey, Shane.
I'm going to give you guys a clue on the song. He has red hair.
Okay. Can you still hear the music, Tanya? Yeah, he's very big right now.
Stephanie's
Stephanie,
here.
here she is.
All right, we're going to add her on, guys.
Okay.
Probably turn the music off now. Search me. Hi, Stephanie.
We're adding
Hey.
Here she is. Okay, nobody guessed the song, so nobody gets to ask the first question for you.
Oh, all right.
We were playing our elevator music.
That's okay.
Stephanie's mom was
My
calling her.
mom started calling.
Oh. Did I lose you guys?
How dare her.
Sorry, Stephanie's mom started calling, and it just kind of paused the broadcast.
Oh. Hi, Stephanie's mom.
So we were just trying to play a little game. If they could guess the song, then they were able to ask you the first question tonight while we have you on.
Well, nobody.
And by the way, the song was "Make It Rain" by Ed Sheeran.
Well, I knew the answer, but I didn't want to give it away. So.
Well, you get to ask the first question. So thanks for being on with us tonight. We're very excited to have
Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, I know you've been super busy lately,
Yes.
so we have tons of stuff to talk about.
Yes, we do. I'm sure.
So, as I always say, you're my spirit animal. I think you've seen my fangirl posts
Yes, that's
and
awesome.
tags on Twitter. But what I love and appreciate about you is how open and honest you are about not just having this special gift, but things you've had to overcome in the field and just dealing with it. I've watched you and heard you talk about finding your ancestry. So I'm just intrigued by everything you have to say, and I love how you own it.
Well, thank you. I think it came from years of hiding from it and being, I don't want to say ashamed of it, but I want it to be normal. Who doesn't want to be normal, right? Going from there and, trying to hide it from friends and family because I didn't want to be judged. That went, kind of out the window one day. So I figured, you know what, why don't I just be honest about this? Because everybody I meet is always about unicorns and glitter, and that's so not me. So I just decided, let me just put it out there exactly how it is, because I feel like society as a whole, no matter what you do, is always about the glamorous side of things and how wonderful, everything can be as far as like, a fashion magazine all the way to, everyday life. And I know even being in marketing, like a normal job for me, people always say like, oh, just show your highlight reel on social media so that way everybody sees the happy and everything else. But you know what, there's a whole other side to life, and I feel like that contributes to people's unhappiness a lot more than it needs to. So I figure I'm just going to throw myself out there the way I am, love me or hate me, but this is the truth, this is me. So thank you for putting it out there that I'm your spirit animal. I actually laughed out loud when I saw that because I've never had anybody say that before, so you're the first. And that's awesome.
Well, I have similar experience of hiding and suppressing my gifts. And it wasn't until the past few years that I started honing in on them again. And that's kind of where I am now. This is me.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. I own my weirdo, So I think anyone can appreciate having someone else that has been through it, understanding and seeing them talk about it openly.
Right. I've always said, like, let your weirdo flag fly, and who cares what anybody says about it, because you are who you are, and being able to be who you are is a gift in itself, instead of just trying to be like everybody else, because that doesn't usually get you anywhere, because you're trying to be someone you're not. So I appreciate the kindred spirit between us for that reason, because a lot of people don't see it that way. So I love that.
And Stephanie's a great name.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, that's, priorities. I'm trying to share this out while I'm talking to you guys. So if I seem a little distracted, it's because my computer's not working. Nothing's working for me right now. I'm trying hard to get it out there.
So, Stephanie, how did you get into the paranormal world? I read that you've had your ability since you were little girls. So how did you take it to the paranormal investigating level?
That's a great question. Let's see, how did that really truly begin? I tell everybody, I grew up in a haunted house. So built in 1792, it was part of the Underground Railroad, and I just kind of thought that was normal. Like ghosts walking past you in the dining room or like in your bedroom was just an everyday thing. I didn't realize that it wasn't normal until I started getting older and realizing like my friends were actually terrified of ghosts. So I was still the weird kid that I tell the story all the time, and usually apologize to my mother at the same time that I tell the story. But every single time I sat down to do my homework, I was actually, I had my textbook up, and I had like, I forgot what it was called, like the Spooky Almanac or something like that in front of it. And it was all about like ghosts and werewolves and vampires. And I always had this weird ghostly book hidden amongst all of my textbooks in elementary school. And I was always just drawn to it. I just had such a fascination with the strange and the paranormal. So I decided you know, continuing forward, you know, every single Halloween, every Halloween special that was out there. I was kind of obsessed with true crime and like forensic files and different things like that. My poor grandmother used to walk in on me watching my cartoons and find me watching like true crime shows instead, like cold case files, different things like that. So I've always had a love for it, but it wasn't until I usually tell people when it started to go mainstream. So when Ghost Hunters aired on TV, you know, I started to realize like, wow, there's people out there that actually kind of love what I do too. And then I found the Weirdos of Spooky South Coast, my radio show, who were right down the street from me. I had no idea that they even existed. And I think my friend Tim Weisberg's watching. He wrote a book called The Ghosts of the South Coast. And I love, love, love history. I'm a huge history nerd. And I love local history. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. And I started to read the book. I brought it home that night. I was done with it by morning. I actually borrowed it from a friend and I gave it back to her. I found out he was actually going to do a book signing at my job. So I was like, oh, this is even better. I get to spend a whole day being a weirdo. And he came in and he started to ask me questions, you know, oh, you've been to Lizzie Borden house, tell me all about it. And we kind of had a really strange conversation where I was kind of giving him answers to things that like I shouldn't have known without being who I am, but I was still trying to hide the fact that I was intuitive. And he friended me on Facebook and the rest is kind of history. I showed up to a couple of events of theirs, and then I decided to sit in on one of their radio shows one night, and there was a different medium there giving readings, and she was starting to struggle a little bit toward the end, and I couldn't hear anything. I didn't have headphones on, nothing, and in the corner playing on my phone, I just kind of sat up and said, oh, that you're speaking to my brother and you're trying to connect with my grandfather, and this is the part that you're missing. And I just went right back to my phone, not paying attention, and still didn't know what happened. And toward the end, my friend Tim actually said, when you decide to come out of the closet, I want to be your first interview. And I had no idea what he was talking about until I went home and saw it on YouTube and realized what I had done. I was like, oh my God, I outed myself. Now everybody's going to know what I do. And I was terrified. So I still spent a few years kind of hiding from it until it just became to the point where I couldn't hide anymore. And it was just kind of pointless at that point. I was just lying to people. Like, no, I can't do that. But I've always had a love for it. And the more it came out, that it was an everyday, you know, thing rather than, you know, something that everybody should be hush hush about and taboo about. I just kind of embraced it and threw it out there. And it wasn't until I started doing TV a few years ago that I just didn't care anymore. I just put it out there. It was out there for the world to see. National television is a scary, scary thing. So once I decided to do that, I was just like, hey, wave my white flag. I'm done. I'm done hiding. It still makes me nervous to tell people about it, but I'm done hiding.
How does do your friends and family accept it? Are they still skeptical, or have you kind of proven yourself?
You know what's funny is my family has always known. My grandparents always knew. My mom always knew. My dad knew, but he wasn't totally keen on the idea because he's a huge skeptic. I always tell people, my mom was a medium, my dad was a ghost hunter. And I remember finding like infrared photos from like the 1960s from, you know, an actual old camera. And I used to ask, like, you know, why do these look funny? And he would tell me it's because I was looking for ghosts. And I always thought he was kidding, but he wasn't. So he always had that scientific mind, but like accepting the fact that his child could talk to dead people, not really top of his list. So from there, we kind of just went about, you know, everyday life. I freaked him out plenty. And I'm sorry if you guys can hear my daughter in the background. Oops. What happens when you try to hide from a 3-year-old, so you're going to hear screaming. Sorry. So from there, I kind of just decided I wasn't going to argue it anymore. You know, like, it is what it is. And I eventually kind of proved it to him. And he actually asked me, what was the question he asked me? He asked if you could tell me the name of the pilot that crashed the plane that his great uncle died in, then I will believe you. And I told him the guy's nickname, which he knew, and it wasn't printed anywhere. And he's like, all right, like, hands up, I believe you. So from then on, it was like, my kid talks to dead people for a living. So yeah, it was, that was like the hardest and biggest hurdle for me. So, but other than that, I mean, friends. So you said your mom, what did you say?
You said your mom was a medium, your dad was a ghost hunter. Was your mom actually a medium?
Nope, she is. She hates it. She wants nothing to do with it. So
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yep. She had a lot of bad experiences as a kid with, things that scared her. So she was like, I'm good. I don't need this. My grandmother, her mother was my great grandmother, great great grandmother, and I traced it all the way back to the Salem witch trials and when the first pilgrims got off the
Oh,
Mayflower. So it seems to be one woman per generation, and my wild 3-year-old has it too. So it's
oh,
it's
wow.
interesting.
How do you know that?
Um, I've been communicating with her since I was pregnant. It was really weird.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's I had to get the telepathy too. So I tested that out while I was pregnant with her, and it's been spot on ever since. She comes out with the craziest things
Oh,
that even, kind of while you're driving down the road, make you want to stomp on the brakes and go, hold on a minute, what just happened? Um, she,
right.
especially where they're just learning to talk and they don't really know anything at that point. It's kind of, there's nothing to color their perception. It's just, it is what it is. It's black or white to toddlers. So I've tested her time and time again just to make sure I was right, just to, no mistakes. And she's definitely intuitive and gifted for sure. It's just a matter of pushing it in the right direction to see where that goes.
Yeah. So you mentioned the women
Yep.
bringing it down, in the
Yep.
family. There's a lot of people who debate that if it passed down or not.
Right.
There's some mediums or psychics that say it's just the soul that is in your body that has had the gifts prior, not necessarily the family you were born into.
Right.
So your thought on that would be it is in fact hereditary.
I believe it's hereditary, at least for me. I I just spoke with somebody the other day who started to tell me that there is a university that's doing a study on a specific gene being carried throughout a family to prove, like, a mediumship gene, so to speak. And I was starting to do research on that, but I haven't, with everything I've had going on, I haven't had a chance to even stop and try to continue researching it. But I know, at least for myself, it's been passed down one woman per generation. My mom has a sister that doesn't have a psychic bone in her body or doesn't choose to do anything with it. She has a daughter, same thing. I believe everybody's intuitive, everybody has intuition, and that can be developed. How far you can develop it, I can't tell you until you try. But as far as mediumship goes, every psychic is not a medium, but every medium is psychic. That doesn't mean all mediums are good at being psychic. Because I mean, I have friends that are fabulous mediums, but just totally not in touch with their psychic side because they haven't developed it yet. So it's for me, at least, that hardcore gift is definitely passed down. Like, I tell people all the time, I didn't develop it. I was just born with a light switch turned on. And if I practice it and I try to make the effort, it's like playing a musical instrument. The stronger it'll get. You can definitely scrape the surface with mediumship if you're coming out of nowhere and not knowing which way to turn with it, and you can try to do it. But again, like, same thing with psychic ability. You might get to a certain level and not be able to go further. Just like, anybody, if you look at a soccer team, you're going to have one person that can play soccer and you're going to have one person that's going to go play for the Olympics. So that's kind of how I look at it with any type of ability that anybody has. Who am I to judge? Everybody try it out and see how it goes for you. But I know, I speak for myself, that I know it came from a bloodline, and I'm not really sure how or why, but it's where I'm at.
What's interesting in my situation is it's somewhat hereditary too, but first time I ever spoke with my father was when I was 21 years old. I'm now 31.
Okay.
The first thing he asked me is if I thought that I was gifted in that way, because his father was. But I've also been told that my great grandmother, who passed when I was 8, was also gifted. So kind of like I have it from both sides, which I find interesting.
Oh, definitely. I think a big problem too is, I mean, not to get like too dramatic, but the Salem witch trials were a horrible time in history, especially up here in Massachusetts. And it kind of forced people to battle against, religion, and not many people wanted to battle against religion. So they kept their mouth shut. So anybody that was gifted didn't use it, didn't talk about it, had nothing to do with it. So that gets lost over time because things are passed down through word of mouth, not usually through written stories. So our generation at this point, could have no idea that they had people that were gifted in their family because it was taboo. You didn't speak about it. So it's kind of lost to history almost, where my family actually has like written record of all the stuff that they did and things that they practiced, which is really interesting. I forgot, my mom and I were going through something one day, and it was a book from like the late 1700s, 1800s, and it was a book where people used to come to see my grandmother and would write down like the intentions that they needed, whether it was healing, abundance, different things like that. And what she did with it, I don't know. But they had this entire book with people's names, and it was all different, handwriting. So it was people that were coming to them and trying to leave like a note for themselves to either be healed or, preyed upon or whatever it might have been. But that was amongst like old pendulums, just really cool things. Where they hid it so they weren't, prosecuted for, I have no idea. But it's kind of cool to have, and I still haven't gone through everything.
That's incredible
Yeah.
to have.
So that
Yeah.
that's part of my history, at least, and it was written down. But for people that for you, as example, like you didn't know until you had that conversation, but a lot of people might not know. God, even digging through like your regular genealogy, ancestry.com, I've done that plenty of times, and that doesn't come with historical stories either. It's just, oh, these are these people that I didn't even know existed until I started digging. Same thing for stories. You don't know that they
Right.
existed until you start digging, and you might not ever hear them. So I think that's fascinating that that's kind of how you found out, because that must have been a shock that you were getting that validation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So for people who don't know your, don't follow you or don't know anything about you, what kind of abilities do you have? Do you do readings? You walk through haunted places and, say how many spirits are there, or who's with, the haunted house or whatever, but what kind of abilities do you have?
So I tell everybody I have the psychic side and the mediumship side. So psychic abilities range from, pretty much your typical stuff. When I was little, seeing auras was an everyday thing for me. I actually had to force myself to turn it down because it was just kind of out there and a little overwhelming. So I had that. I've always had the gift of telepathy, and it's something that I've always done with my mom. And I meet people very rarely that can communicate back and forth that way. I had the gift of telekinesis when I was a child as well. So pretty much everything in the psychic category I deal with really easily. The mediumship is a thing that I did truly run away from. But I'm able to see, hear, and communicate with those that have passed over, or, whatever it might be. I know a lot of people like to call them earthbound spirits. So that's probably the most common term, but even elemental spirits as well, I've had the chance to experience and can see physically. So it's never been an issue for me to see them, which I know can be shocking to other people as well, but that was kind of my everyday life. So I've done everything from, private readings, gallery readings. I've worked with businesses or authors or television shows to walk through different places to kind of read the location to let them know what I find there. And I always tell people, I kind of go in like one of those old radios where you have to turn the dial to get the exact station that you're looking for. Same thing when I walk through a place. I turn the station to what's left here in the location. Is it residual energy, or is it, actual earthbound spirits that are hanging out, what the history of the place is, feelings of things that have happened there, and then I can turn it up to anybody that, might be connected to someone standing in the room that might be causing the issue for them. So a little bit of everything, I think.
So you can see spirits that are attached to somebody else.
Yep.
So when you say you can see them, do you see them in like full form? Do you just see faces? Like, what do you see?
I tell everybody it depends on the spirit, because all of them have different levels of energy and they all have a different way of showing themselves. So it depends on, like my past loved ones, for example. My grandfather passed and he came right back to me to let me know that he had passed, because I had just gotten home from seeing him. And at that point, he was standing there full figured, looked completely solid to me. I looked right at him. I was like, okay, wow. You died? You're gone? All right. Mutual understanding. He was gone. Phone rang 2 seconds after he disappeared. I just picked up the phone. I said, I already know he's dead. And my mom said, okay, I figured you would, but I just needed to let you know it just happened because you just left and I know you were waiting for it for 3 days. And so something like that, fine. When my grandmother first passed, she was a little bit more see-through. but opaque at the same time is the best way to describe it. So it just depends on their energy level. It depends on the spirit. There's times where I can see it just in my mind's eye, but most of the time, physically, it's either full body, parts of a body, face. It just really depends on how long have they been stuck here without crossing over. Have they crossed over? Kind of a lot of factors that bleed into that, and it's always a mystery. So I can usually tell just by them standing there and figuring it out.
Now, do you think that psychics or mediums can level up, so to speak? I know there's people who, it's mostly through their mind's eye. They get flashes, images, letters, maybe numbers. But from there, they all of a sudden start physically seeing. Like, for instance, I just learned that I've been astral traveling.
That's always fun.
In my dreams. Yep. And I didn't know what that was until like this week.
It's kind of horrifying when you figure it out.
You're like insidious, right?
Yeah, it was. And I'm like, he wants me to come back. So my friend Joe died when I was 17.
Okay.
I had a premonition the night before. At that point, I thought it was a dream. I was guilt-ridden, had to get over that. But when I dream with him, it's so real. He knows what's going on in life. It's like I'm physically talking to him. So I just learned about astral traveling, and it's just so fascinating.
It is.
Do you do that?
Yep. I always tell people I'm not good at the landing. And that's kind of the part that freaks people out, because it's that weird dream where you think you're falling and then you shake the bed. And people are like, oh, I have that constantly. I was like, well, congratulations. You're constantly traveling. When you're coming back into your body, you're not good at landing. So that's what creates the thud.
Right, like your whole body jumps.
Yes. And it's really uncomfortable. Probably one of the worst feelings for me, at least, because I hate heights on top of it. So doing something like that is just,
right.
I'd just rather skip it. It's just so much easier. So something like that is just always really surprising for people, because they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, how do you think you know what's happening in that location that you traveled to? It's not just one of those weird dreams. It's you're actually experiencing what's going on in real time. The opposite of, the astral traveling and the knowing is the remote viewing during the daytime, and people don't realize that either, but you're awake for that. You're sleeping during the astral travel. So as far as your question before that, leveling up, absolutely. You can experience new things at different times, especially if you have different things that go on in your life that kind of unlock